Mugen talks to Fate about the Chimera being controlled. It's unusual for one monster to control another, and Mugen explains that his family has studied Galan technology for generations. Corpse suggests that Mugen have his daughter examine a chimera, but Mugen assumes Corpse is just trying to meet her and vows never to let someone like him date her. Meanwhile, Mugen's daughter, Rain, learns about the Valeric's troubles, after whose death. Rumors say Raphael is obsessively studying the Philosopher's Stone, which is said to heal any wound and grant immense power, but also dominates the user's mind and body. Rain looks up more information and discovers its dangerous properties. Back at home, Fate recalls something Mind told him. He should aim for the domain of E, the level of power held by the Divine Dragon. If he can't reach that level, he won't be able to fight it. However, if he pushes too hard, his skills might overwhelm him. An alarm interrupts his thoughts as Northern informs Roxy about a massive stampede, or death march, that's underway. Roxy plans to intercept it and instructs her troops to prepare for a march to Gallia. Fate sees the death march for the first time and notices Roxy arriving with the royal army. Greed, always quick with a quip, wonders if Fate plans to play the hero again. Fate is confident Roxy can handle the situation, wants to be prepared. As he enters a half-starvation state, Greed notes that he's managing it better than before. Suddenly, Greed detects something approaching the royal army from the east. Something moving through the ground like a whale swims through water. It's enormous, and if it continues on its path, it will end up right beneath the royal army, which is distracted by the death march and vulnerable to a surprise attack. Fate uses Greed's ability to turn into a bow and amplifies the charge with his gluttony skill, giving it double the range. This modified attack is only usable in his half-starvation state. Greed praises the attack as the creature reveals itself, a giant slime monster with the same emblem as the other controlled beasts. Determined to uncover the truth, Fate prepares to attack. His analysis shows the crown beast has stamina, magic, and spirit stats, all exceeding 10 million. Greed warns that even a holy knight would struggle against such a beast and transforms into a shield to protect Fate from the monster's acid rain. Greed warns Fate that if the slime touches him, the acid will melt him, meaning close combat is impossible. Even cutting it will cause acid to spray everywhere. To counter this, Fate gives 10% of his stats to Greed and fires a flaming arrow, hoping to evaporate the monster. Unfortunately, the slime splits itself in half and dodges the attack, diving back underground, heading straight for the royal army. Fate chases after it, but is forced to destroy its babies, which pop out of nowhere, a tactic too advanced for a regular slime monster. He quickly finds a spot where the creature will resurface and prepares to destroy its core. This time, he gives 20% of his stats to Greed, aiming for a more powerful attack. Greed is shocked, since they've never practiced this move, but Fate fires the arrow anyway. Just before the arrow hits, something else strikes the slime first. Fate has no idea what happened, but is relieved to hear his gluttony skill activate. Shockingly, the slime survives, even though Fate consumed its soul. Fate then notices someone watching him, wearing a perception-altering mask like his own. Assuming it's Ice, he attacks, trying to expose her. Greed realizes the person has a mortal sin weapon, specifically the black gun sword Envy. He explains that the slime was hit by a magic bullet, which unlocked its latent power. Without a core, the slime gained the ability to split and replicate infinitely, becoming even more dangerous. The slime engulfs Fate, and Greed fears he's done for. However, Fate quickly escapes, revealing that he had already figured out the slime's corrosion magic. Confident, Fate turns to confront the mystery person. His gluttony skill kicks in, and Greed warns him not to push too hard, or his stats might spike uncontrollably. Determined, Fate launches an arrow, but it's deflected. Greed reveals that Fate has reached the limit of human stats and must now ascend to the domain of E to continue growing stronger. Fate realizes that his attack failed because the opponent has already reached this level. Fueled by rage, Fate continues attacking but quickly realizes this is not it's a man. The stranger fires his gun, and though Fate raises his shield, he still takes damage. Realizing how much stronger this guy is, as the man prepares to finish Fate off, Fate refuses to give up, reminding himself he's willing to die if necessary. Just as the man fires at point-blank range, Fate demands more power from his gluttony skill. Both of Fate's eyes turn red and the mystery man is stunned. Fate has achieved the domain of E. Now confident, Fate thanks the man, saying that if it worked for him, he wouldn't have unlocked this new power. Fate goes on the offensive, ignoring the slime entirely. The man tries shooting again. Fate effortlessly dodges the attacks and creates a smokescreen. Finally, Fate manages to destroy the man's mask, revealing him to be Northern. Strangely, Northern says Fate is half right in calling him Northern, but refuses to explain further. Instead, Northern begins playing a flute. Fate is baffled, but Northern ominously states that he'll understand soon. To Fate's shock, the divine dragon appears, heading directly toward Roxy. Northern gleefully points out that the dragon will reach her in 30 seconds, claiming he and the dragon will do everything to kill Roxy. He taunts Fate, firing more shots and cornering him with the slime, just to buy time. Ignoring the attacks, Fate rushes toward Roxy. The divine dragon strikes fear into everyone as it approaches, but Roxy stands firm, asking her father to lend her strength. Roxy instantly regrets not running as the divine dragon unleashes a powerful attack, leaving everyone worried for her. Luckily, Fate arrives just in time to save her. Yet again, the dragon launches another devastating attack, and Fate does everything he can to protect Roxy, though his mask is destroyed in the process. Without turning around, Roxy begins to suspect that her rescuer is Fate. Fate can't keep the secret any longer. He turns to her and finally greets Roxy as Fate, something he hasn't done in a long time. While Roxy is happy to see him, she's startled by his glowing red eyes. There's no time for a reunion as the dragon prepares to attack again. Fate urges Roxy to run, but she's too shocked to move. Apologizing for lying to her, Fate thanks Roxy for everything before rushing off to face the dragon. Roxy can only cry out as he leaves. Meanwhile, Northern mocks Fate, warning him the fight won't be easy. But Fate, undeterred, tells Greed to prepare their plan. Greed informs Fate that it's ready, so Fate activates Grand Cross Returnable, trapping the dragon. Northern, surprised, starts shooting at Fate. He compliments Fate on using an art he's never seen before. But Fate admits he wanted to fight him one-on-one. Unfortunately, Fate starts losing ground as his stats drop from using the secret art. Northern feels certain of his victory and gives 3 reasons. Fate is exhausted from forcing his way into the domain of E. He's using energy to hold back the dragon. And Northern hasn't even gotten serious yet. As the fight continues, Greed advises Fate to stay close to Northern, preventing him from getting distance. Northern notices Fate's growing desperation and realizes that if Fate strays too far from the dragon, he'll lose control of the trap. Fate tries to keep fighting, but Northern sees his panic. In the next attack, Northern takes advantage and shockingly cuts off Fate's arm. Believing the fight is over, Northern reveals that Aeus had high hopes for Fate, but he's caused too much trouble. Just as Northern prepares to kill him, he's pierced through the chest by Fate's attack. An illusion? Fate had sacrificed his arm to make Northern drop his guard, and now Fate finishes him off. After consuming Northern's soul, Fate's gluttony skill activates, and he finds himself in a strange place. Luna, the girl who was in Haniel's core, appears and thanks Fate for freeing her, but warns that she can't help him anymore. Fate doesn't understand until the ground crumbles, revealing all his victims. Luna explains that while she once quieted his gluttony, that's no longer possible. She warns that if Fate devours the divine dragon, he will lose control. Before Fate can fall, he is saved by a familiar voice, Greed. Greed says it's time to return. Fate thanks Luna for her warning and tells her he can't leave the dragon unchecked. He vows to slay it once they're back. The divine dragon breaks free, and Fate knows he needs to end the fight fast. With only one arm, Fate jokes with Greed, asking if he's ever wanted to fly. He launches Greed at the dragon, combining it with a powerful punch, dealing massive damage. Fate uses his Identify skill, revealing the dragon's sky-high stats, but he still has a slight edge in strength. Taking advantage, Fate slices through the dragon until it collapses. The dragon manages one final powerful attack. Fate combines 2 skills to power up his last strike. The blow is incredibly powerful, slicing through the dragon like butter. Fate's gluttony skill activates after consuming the dragon's soul, but it causes him excruciating pain. As Fate struggles to keep control, gluttony tries to take over, threatening to make him a bigger danger than the divine dragon. Fate realizes what he must do to prevent this, but so does Greed. Greed tries to stop him, but Fate accesses Greed's new level to reset his stats. This way, when he eventually goes berserk, the the damage will be minimized. Greed, in disbelief, realizes that gluttony is now consuming Fate himself. Fate collapses as the inner battle intensifies. At that moment, Mine appears out of nowhere. Fate, barely able to speak, tells her to kill him. Mine reminds him that she warned this would happen if he pushed himself too far. All he can do is apologize. Mine, determined to keep her promise, prepares to end his life. But before she can act, Roxy rushes in to save him. Fate is confused and asks why she would do such a thing. Roxy, furious, demands to know how he could even ask that. Fate, ashamed, doesn't want her to look at him in this broken state. His worst nightmare come true. But Roxy explains that nothing, not even this, could make her hate him. She begs him not to throw his life away, reminding him that no matter what power he wields, he will always be Fate to her. Fate is stunned. Gluttony, which had been raging inside him, is now quiet. He can't believe that Roxy still accepts him after seeing the truth. Roxy insists they return to Babylon, and Fate, amazed by her loyalty, realizes that not only did he always want to save Roxy, he also wanted her to save him, just like she had before. With that, Mine leaves, knowing that Fate is in good hands, and he collapses into Roxy's arms. Sometime later, Fate wakes up in his room at the inn, groggy and disoriented. He notices his arm is still missing. To his surprise, Ace barges in, informing him that he's been asleep for an entire week. She returns Greed, who was annoyed because Fate didn't even realize he was missing. Ice explains that they had to search the central part of Gallia to recover Greed, who was covered in dirt. Apparently, Mine forgot to collect him, and they assume some monster must have dragged Greed that far away. Mine enters and clarifies that she was preoccupied dealing with Envy. She warns that things could get dangerous if Envy finds another vessel, like Northern, and starts causing trouble again. The girls reveal that Northern was merely a puppet, controlled by the black gun sword Envy. Weapons of mortal sin like Envy cannot be destroyed, so Mine used her immense strength to fling it to the far side of Gallia. Ice then tells Fate that defeating the Divine Dragon has proven his immense potential. Because of this, they now seek his help. However, their original plan, to create a crowned human by causing Roxy's death, is over. Fate, still weak, reminds Ice that she promised never to target Roxy again. Reluctantly, he agrees to hear her request, but only on the condition that Roxy remains safe. After Ice agrees to Fate's condition, she explains that the original plan to cause Roxy's death was never hers, was Envy's. Now that the Divine Dragon is gone, the country is entering a new era, and they need Fate for what comes next. It's something all wielders of the deadly sin skills must face. So Fate doesn't really have a choice. He agrees to help, though he's mostly driven by a desire to learn why he was chosen to receive the gluttony skill in the first place. Ice suggests they fix his missing arm first, and Fate is shocked to hear that such magic exists. Ice then drops another bombshell. They need to leave before Roxy returns. It's too dangerous for him to be around her right now. Just hearing Roxy's name makes gluttony stir inside him, and Fate reluctantly agrees to leave. Moments later, Roxy comes to see Fate, only to find his room empty. She discovers a letter where Fate apologizes once again for lying to her. He writes that he has to leave for now but promises to return one day. A flashback shows a young Fate when he first met Roxy. She was kind to him. Fate, being a timid boy, begged her not to hit him, thinking she was angry. Roxy realized that people feared holy knights like her, which made her feel ashamed of her role. Fate's stomach growled and she fed him sandwiches, concerned when he mentioned he had no family. Despite this, Fate told her she made him see that the capital wasn't full of bad people, and this helped Roxy hold her head high, proud to be a holy knight. Roxy hopes to meet Fate again someday and vows to get stronger for when that day comes. Meanwhile, in a different part of the world, the Valaks are shocked to learn that the person they thought was dead, corpse, was actually Fate all along. Arphael, Fate's brother, goes off to be alone and surprisingly feels thankful that Fate killed their brother, Ho. He laughs maniacally as the Philosopher's Stone begins to glow in his possession. Out in the desert, Fate gives Greed a massive 40% of his stats. This reveals Greed's secret art at his 4th level, Twilight Healing, a powerful ability that regenerates Fate's arm. After this, Fate and the girls head back to the capital. Fate is frustrated that Greed, as usual, is being greedy and now wants a new scabbard, even though Fate just bought him one. Greed insists that now that Fate has reached the domain of V, he needs a scabbard worthy of his new stature. Since they don't have the money, Greed suggests they earn it the old-fashioned way, through more battles. Fate, finally agreeing with his partner, prepares to fight once again. Thanks for watching this full Season 1 recap.